Hello everyone, welcome you all. In the today's video, we are going to learn input, output and error redirection concept in Unix or Linux. So first of all, let us try to understand what is input, output, error and redirection. So let me just share small PPT here. So normally in the Unix or Linux, we execute certain number of commands. So when you execute a command, sometimes we can pass some input to the command, and that input can be passed either through your keyboard or sometime we can pass input through command line arguments. So once you provided the input to the command will display the output, or sometimes that command will display the error. If the input is not correct, sometimes the command will also give you the error. So whenever we produce some input, whenever we provide some input to the command will give some output, or sometimes it will give you an error. So where exactly the output or error will be displayed? Again in the terminal window in Unix or Linux. So if I just look at here, keyboard or command line. So these two are called standard input device. So standard input device is nothing but most of the times we will provide the input to the command through keyboard or sometimes through command line argument. And once the command is received that input, the output or error will be displayed in the terminal. So terminal is standard output device or standard error device. So the default standard input device is a keyboard or command line, and standard output device is a terminal, and standard error device is also a terminal, because whenever we get the output or an error will be displayed only on the terminal. So the terminal is a default standard output device for output as well as error. So based on this understanding, let us try to understand input, output, error, redirection. What is redirection means? Sometimes when I get an output or sometimes we get an error, by default, the output or error will be displayed on the terminal itself. So that is the reason we can call it as a terminal is a standard output device or standard error device. But instead of displaying the output or error in the command line or in the terminal, I want to redirect that output or I want to redirect that error message into some other file. Okay, I want to redirect the output or I want to redirect the error message into some other file. So that concept is called as redirection. So by default, the output or errors will be displayed inside the terminal itself. That's the reason we can call it as a standard output device. Standard error device is a terminal. Suppose I want to display the output or error messages in some other file. Instead of using the terminal, I want to display the output or error message in some other file. Then I can use a redirection concept. So we have three types of redirections: input redirection, output redirection, error redirection. So first let us talk about output redirection, error redirection, and then we'll come to the input redirection. Output redirection means what? Whatever output we are getting from this command, if by default that output will be displayed in the terminal window itself. If I want to redirect that output into some other file, instead of printing the output in the same terminal window, I want to get the output in some other file. So there I can apply redirection concept. Similarly, if I execute a command with some input, something went wrong. Now I got an error in the terminal window. So instead of displaying the error in the same terminal window, I want to redirect that error into some other file. Okay, that is called as output and error redirection. And what is input redirection? So input redirection means sometimes I can provide the input from the keyboard or through command line arguments. Instead of providing the input to the command through command line or through keyboard, I want to get the input from another file or some text file or some word file or some other file. That is called as input redirection. So we have a three kinds of redirection. Redirection can be applied in three ways. One is input redirection, output redirection, error redirection. So why redirection concept is required? So by default, By default, we will provide the input to the command through keyboard or command line arguments. But if I want to take the input from external files, which is called as input redirection. Similarly, by default, output or error messages will be displayed in the terminal itself. Instead of that, I want to display or I want to write the output or error messages into some external files. That is called as output redirection or error redirection. Now we will see how we can implement this redirection concept in Unix and Linux operating systems. Let me write the nodes also here. So we have seen in what is input redirection, what is output redirection, what is error redirection. So for every redirection or input, output or error, there will be a symbol and there will be representing with some number. So for example, I want to do input redirection. For input redirection, we use either greater than or double greater than symbols. And similarly, output redirection, I can use same greater than or double greater than symbols. And input redirection, for input redirection, I can use less than symbol. So for input redirection, sorry, this is a output redirection, sorry, it is output redirection, and this is error redirection, and this is a input redirection. So for output redirection, I can use greater than and double greater than. For error redirection, I can use same symbols, and for input redirection, I can use less than. But along with the symbols, we can also represent output redirection with output redirection with 1 and error redirection with the 2, and we can also represent input redirection with the 0. So these are the symbols and numbers we represent output, error and input redirection. Now based on this understanding, let us try to execute few number of commands. So first let us start with output redirection, and then we will go with error and input redirections. So first let us start with output redirection. So what is output redirection and what are the symbols we have to use? So in output direction, we use two symbols. Either we use greater than or double greater than. So which is representing output redirection. If we want to redirect the output into some other file, we can use these two symbols. And the number which is representing the output redirection is 1. Okay. So based on this, let us say I have one requirement here. So my requirement is read input from the keyboard. So keyboard is a standard input device from where we can provide the input. So read the input from the keyboard and write output into output.txt. So here I'm using output redirections. Normally when I provide the input to the command, even output also will be displayed in the same terminal, because command line is standard input device and keyboard is a standard input device, and so even terminal is a standard output device. So instead of printing the output in the terminal, I want to redirect that output into output.txt file. So let me just show you a simple example. Let's connect to my Ubuntu. Okay, so once I log in here, observe this carefully. So what I'm going to do is I'm just executing a simple command called cat. I say cat1, cat. So here what I'm going to do is when I say cat, simple command, when I press enter key, so it is waiting for the input. So when I execute the cat command, it is waiting for the input. So normally when you pass the input, what is a standard input device? Keyboard is a standard input device. So from the keyboard, I'm typing something. So this is my input. I'll say testing tool. So this is my input, which is given by my through my keyboard. So standard input device is my keyboard. So press enter. Now we got some output here. So this is the output which is displayed by this command. So where exactly the output is displayed? In the same terminal, output is displayed. So the standard input device is your keyboard and the standard output device is your terminal. Standard output device is your terminal. So instead of that, what I want to do is I will provide the input from my keyboard, but I want to display the output, or I want to write the output in some other file. So what does that mean is I'm going to redirect it. I'm going to redirect the output into some other file. For example, let us say this is my command. I'm providing some input to the command through keyboard. And once you provide the input to the command, normally where exactly the output will be displayed, in the same terminal, the output will be displayed. Instead of displaying the output in the same terminal, I want to redirect the output into some other file. So some other file I'll create, and the output I will redirect to the particular file. So this is a basically output redirection. So whatever output you are getting from this command, instead of displaying the output in the same terminal, I want to redirect that output into some other file. This is output redirection. Now we will see how we can achieve this. So for output redirection, we use less greater than or double greater than, and the number which is representing for output redirection is 1. Okay, now we will see how we can do this. So this is a standard output. This is output. So standard symbol used for output redirection is greater than, double greater than, and standard output device representing with 1. As I said before, output redirection we can do by using greater than and double greater than, and output redirection representing with one number. Now based on this understanding, let us try to write one command. So simply here what I will do is I'll say simply cat. Okay, cat. Now whatever the input I'm going to provide here, if I just look at this command once again, when I execute the cat, what it is saying, it is waiting for the input. So I'll provide the input from the keyboard itself. Let's say testing. So as soon as press enter, the output is displaying in the same terminal. So I want to take the input from the keyboard itself, but I want to redirect the output to the output.txt file. So what is the redirection symbol we have to use for output redirection? Either greater than or double greater than. So here what I will do is I say greater than output.txt. And when I use output redirection symbol, what is the number which is representing 1? So that we have to specify. Now what this command will do is the cat command will expect some input from us. So we will provide the input from the keyboard. After providing the input, the output will be written inside the output.txt file. So here basically we are doing output redirection. So whatever input we are providing to the cat command, the input will be written in the output.txt. So whatever the input we are providing, the output will be written into the output.txt file. So this is output redirection. Now let me show you how we can do this. So let's say Control D, clear. Let me open this terminal once again. Okay, let me increase the font. Okay, all right. So let me just execute this. So what I can do is I execute one cat command, and which will expect some input from the keyboard. So later I'll provide the input, and whatever the output I want to get will be written into some other file. So output direction. So for output direction, what is the symbol we have to use? 1 and greater than, and the file name is output.txt. So now whatever the output we are getting from this command will be redirecting to the output.txt file. So redirecting number is 1 and greater than is a redirecting symbol. So when I execute this command, observe this what happens. So first of all, we need to provide the input to the cat command. So here I'm providing some input. Let's say A, B, C, D, and after that I'll say Control D. Okay, when I say Control D, it is exited. Now we can observe this. This command is not displayed any output here now. I just taken the input, but not displayed any output. But where exactly we can see the output, where exactly this data is written? Output.txt. So if you want to print cat output.txt, now we can see the data is written in output.txt. So what exactly we are doing is, whatever the output is producing by this command, we are redirecting the output into output.txt file. So how we have done is by using greater than symbol. Suppose when I execute the same command one more time, then what happens? So let us try this. So let me executing the same command one more time. So again, it is expecting some input, and this time I'm giving some other input. Let's say M and O, say Control D. And now we can say cat output.txt, cat output.txt, cat output.txt, sorry, cat output.txt. Now we can see m when wo is there. So what happens when I execute the same command second time? First time when executing this command, we provided some input and the same output is written into output.txt file. So output redirection is happened. So when I execute the same command once again, whatever the data which is already there in the file, which is overridden by the new data. So when I cat this file, which is displaying the new data, but old data is gone. Okay. So suppose I want to still have the old data. So I want to just append the new data. So then how we can do it? We can do output direction like this. So when I say cat output.txt, currently we have m and o. Now I want to add some other data. Okay, so executing the same command again. So we can execute the same command like this. So cat one greater than output.txt, which will take another input. And again, the old data will be replaced with the new data. But I don't want to replace the data. I just want to append the new data. So instead of greater than, I can use double greater than. So cat one is representing the output redirection, and the symbol is greater than or double greater than. So when I say only greater than, which will remove the existing data and will add the new data. And when I use double greater than, which will have the old data still and it will append the new data into the file. So currently m when wo is already there. Now I'm executing this command. Now I'm adding new data. I'll say A, B, C, then Control D. Now when I put cat output dot txt, now which will display all the data. So previously we have m and o, and additionally we have added A, B, C. Okay, so instead of printing the data on the same terminal, I just redirecting the output to the some other file. So that is basically called as output redirection. Output redirection. Okay, so now what we have done in the output redirection, we have taken the input from the keyboard, and whatever output you are getting, instead of printing the output in the console window, I'm just redirecting the output to the some other file by using output redirection. So what are the symbols we have used? Greater than and double greater than. So when I use greater than symbol, which will just remove the existing data and then new data will be added. So when I use double greater than, which will append the new data to the output.txt file. So that is a basic difference. And what is the number which is representing is 1. So representing is 1. And one more thing is, even 1 is also optional. So in the output redirection, when I use greater than, 1 is also always optional. We can also execute command like this. So we can just remove the 1. So then what happens? I say cat output redirection output.txt. Then it will expect some data and will be stored in output.txt. So for example, let me just go to the terminal once again. Clear? So cat, normally what you will do is we will specify the number and then redirection, output redirection, say output.txt, right? So when I say A, B, C, Control D. Now when I print the file, I can say cat output.txt. So then it is printed ABC. So instead of this, I can also use just the redirection symbol, because 1 is optional here. For output redirection, 1 is optional. So when I execute cat output.txt, suppose I want to append the data, so use double greater than. So execute. Now I'm adding one more data. I'll say m and o and Control D. Now we can just print the data. I say cat output.txt. Now we'll get the entire data. So for output redirection, 1 is optional. So one is the number which is representing the output direction, output redirection. So always we no need to specify the one. So when I simply say either double greater than or single greater than, we can achieve output redirection. So basically output redirection means whatever output we are displaying in the console or terminal window, we are redirecting the output into some other file. And we can achieve this by using greater than or double greater than symbols. Okay. That is all about output redirection. Output redirection. Similarly, I'll show you one more example. For example, I have one more requirement here. So when I execute ls command, what this will do is, which will display the list of all the files and directories in my terminal window. But instead of displaying the data in my terminal window, I want to redirect the output into output.txt file. So then how we can achieve this? Let me show you. So here, clear, when I execute ls-l, so which is displaying all the files and directories here in the console window itself or in the terminal window itself. But instead of printing the output here in the terminal, I want to redirect this output into some other file. I want to redirect this output into some other file. So then how we can achieve this? First command ls-l is a command. So this will give you the output, but I want to redirect that output into some other file. So output redirection we have to use. So how we can use output redirection? Greater than and specify the file name. I'll say output.txt. So here we can specify the one also, but one is optional. One is representing the output redirection. So one is optional. So when I say like this, ls-l, this is actual command which will display the output in the terminal window by default. But instead of printing the data in the terminal window, I want to redirect that output into output.txt file. Okay. Now let us execute and see. When I execute this command, now it is not printed anything in the terminal window. Now if I just print the data from output.txt, now observe. So in output.txt, we have all the files and directories from this location. So this is how we can redirect the output into some other file. This is output redirection. Okay, let me show you one more example. So for example, my requirement is I want to display the date. For example, I'll say date command. So when I execute the date command, normally what happens when I say date command, which display the output in the terminal window itself. Now I want to redirect this output into some other file. I want to redirect this output into some other file. So how we can redirect this output? Simply we can say date is a command. So redirection means greater than and the file name output.txt. So this command will redirect the date output into output.txt. Now when I print this cat output.txt, now it is printed the date. So instead of getting the output in the same terminal window, I'm just redirecting the output into some other file. Then I'm getting the data from that particular file. So this is called as output redirection. So these are the few examples of output redirection. So whatever output we are getting from the command, we can redirect them to the some other file. And we use either greater than and double greater than. And the number which is representing the output redirection is 1. And that is always optional. Okay. This is all about output redirection. Now I'll show you error redirection. The next concept is error redirection. How we can redirect the error. So error redirection. So what is the symbol we have used for output redirection? Greater than and double greater than. So similarly, here also we use same symbols for error redirection. And the number which we have to use for error redirection is 2. So the standard device representing with 2. So error redirection symbol is greater than and double greater than, and the number which is representing the error redirection is 2. Okay, so standard error device representing with 2. In case of output redirection, we use 1. In case of error redirection, we use 2. And symbols are exactly the same. But here 1 is optional. but here 2 is mandatorily required. If I don't use this number, which will consider as a output redirection. So we must specify the number called 2. Now I'll show you a few examples how we can use error redirection. So what is the meaning of error redirection? So when I execute some command, sometimes I executed this command with some invalid input, or the command itself is wrong. Then what happens? Normally errors will be displayed on the same terminal. Errors will be displayed on the same terminal. But instead of displaying the error in the terminal, I want to redirect that error into some other file. I want to redirect that error into some other file. That is called as error redirection. Error redirection. Now we'll see a few examples. Let's go to Linux terminal. Let me clear this. So let me just execute one command. Let's say we have a command called cal command, right? When I say cal, and I'm giving the month and also year. So one is representing January 2021 calendar I want to display. So when I execute this command, the output is displaying in my console window. Output is displaying in the terminal window. So exactly 2021 January calendar is displayed. For example, I give some invalid month. So instead of month 1, I'll say 15, because we don't have 15 month. Only month range will start from 1 to 12. So 15 is not a month. So what exactly we will get? We will get an error message in the terminal window itself. So instead of displaying the error here, I want to redirect this error into some other file. I want to redirect the same error into some other file. So then how we can do error redirection? So to do the error redirection, we use either greater than or double greater than, and the number is 2. Now let me show you how we can do error redirection. So for that, what you can do is I use cal command. I say 15 2021, same command I'm executing because I want to produce some error. So this will throw some error. By default, the error will be displayed in the terminal window. Instead of that, I want to redirect the error into some other file. So how we can redirect? What is the symbol? Greater than. So when I say greater than, by default, it will consider as an output direction, output redirection. But we must specify the number. So 2 representing the error redirection. So 1 representing the output redirection, 2 representing the error redirection. So 1 is optional for output redirection, but here 2 is mandatory. If I don't specify the 2, it will consider as a output redirection. So now I'm going to send the error to the file. So error redirection. So 2 greater than, and where you want to send this error, some other file. Let me create error.txt. So now what this command will do is, this command will throw some error, and that error will be redirecting to the error.txt file. So when I execute this command, will not get any output. Now if I just print this error.txt file, then you got the error message. So this is how we can do error redirection. So whatever error we are getting from the command, we can redirect that error into some other file, which is called as error redirection. Error redirection. Okay. So let me just write something here. So error redirection we have seen. And in error redirection, we use either greater than and double greater than. So greater than means what? Whatever the data we already have in that file will be override with the new data. And double greater than means what? It will just append the data. So for example, so I'm executing the same command again. Same command will get the same error. Okay, and this time I'll produce a different error. Let's say 202 some x. This is an invalid year. So that will give you one error. And then I want to write the error into error.txt. Because when I use greater than symbol, the old data will be replaced with the new data. The old data will be gone. But still I want to have old data. So instead of greater than, I'm using double greater than. So now what happens is, here we will get 2 errors. So let me just give proper month here. I'll say 12 is a correct month, but year is not correct. So this will give you an error, and that error we are sending into error.txt. We are redirecting into error.txt. And while redirecting this error, I'm using double greater than symbol, so that I want to have the old data in the same file. I want to just append the error into error.txt. Now when I execute this, it is executed. Now let us print the data from error.txt cat error.txt. Now we can see this is the error we got earlier. Now this is a new error, so not a valid year. Okay, so this is how we can redirect the error. So error redirection. So far we have seen two kinds of redirections. One is we have seen output redirection and error redirection. In output redirection we use greater than and double greater than. Even in the error redirection we use greater than and double greater than. But in output redirection we use a number called 1, that is optional. But in error redirection we must specify the number 2, otherwise it will consider as a output redirection. Okay, now I will just do something here. Let me just give you one example. Okay, here I'm writing something. Let's say I have one command and I want to redirect the output of this command into some other file. So output redirection. So for output redirection, what is the command we have to execute for output redirection? 1 greater than. So 1 is optional, but I can say 1 greater than, which is a output redirection. And which file I want to get the output? Let's say output.txt. Now, whatever command I executed, the output I want to redirect to the output.txt. So while executing this command, if we got proper output, will be resent to this file, redirecting to the file. Suppose if you get any error while executing this command, and that error we have to redirect to the error.txt. So for that I can use 2 greater than error.txt. Now if I observe the whole command, what I'm doing here is I'm executing some command. If I get some output, I'm redirecting the output into output.txt. If there is any error in this command, I'll redirecting the error into error.txt file. So this is a output redirection and this is a error redirection. And again, I'll write the same command like this. So in output redirection, 1 is optional. I can just remove the 1, but 2 is mandatory required. So 1 is optional, so we can just remove the 1. It is not mandatory, but 2 is a mandatory. If I remove the 2 also, which will again consider as an output redirection. So we must specify the 2 here. Okay, so this is all about output and error redirections. Now I'll talk about input redirection. Input redirection. So what is input redirection? So when I look at the picture again, sometimes when you're executing this command, we provide the input through either keyboard or sometimes through command line arguments, we can provide the input. So these are standard input device. So standard input device is either keyboard or command line. And what is input redirection means what? So sometimes we can get the input from some file. Instead of directly typing through keyboard or typing through command line argument, we can get the input from some other file, and that is called input redirection. Okay, we can get the input from file and we can display the output in some other file, again by using output redirection. So what is input redirection means what? We can take the data from some input file, and by standard input devices are keyboard and command line argument, but instead of these two, I'll take input from some text file by using input redirection. So for input redirection, what is the symbol we use is less than. Less than is a input redirection symbol, and what is the number we have to represent with this? 0 is a representation. So input redirection we can achieve by using less than, and the number which is representing the input redirection is 0. Okay, now based on this understanding, we will see few examples. So let me just see something. Let me just give some requirements. So requirement 3 and let's say requirement 4. So in this requirement, what I'm going to do is read input from input.txt. So I'll create one file called input.txt which contains some data. So I'll read the input from this file instead of getting from keyboard or command line, and display the output in the terminal. What does it mean? I am taking the not standard input stream. I'm taking the input from the input.txt. So input redirection, and display output in terminal means what? it is not output redirection. I'm directly printing the output in the terminal, but only the input redirection I'm using. So let me just achieve this. So let me just create one file. I'll say cat input.txt file I'm creating. Let us have some data in this. I'll say A, B, C, D, and control D. Clear. And I just print the data cat input.txt. Now in input.txt, I have some data here. So A, B, C, D is my data in input.txt. Now I want to read the data from input.txt, and then by using output redirection, I want to keep the same data in some other file. Okay, so how we can do the command? First, we need to execute this command cat input.txt. So we need to take the input from the file, not from the keyboard, right? So how to use input direction is we can use less than is a input direction symbol, which is representing with a 0. Now I can execute the command like this cat 0 less than 0 less than from which file? Input.txt file. Now let us try to understand this. Cat is a command which needs some input. So from where I need to take the input? From input.txt. So 0 is a number which is representing input. Okay, input redirection. And what is the symbol we have to use? Less than is a symbol. So 0 less than and input.txt. From this file, which will take the input, and from once you take the input, where I want to write the input. So when I execute this command, we'll see what will happen. So it is just display the output in the terminal window itself. This is exact requirement. So read the input from input.txt and display the output in the terminal. So I read the data from input.txt and just display the data in the terminal. Okay, this is simple example. So here 0 is representing input redirection number, and less than is representing input redirection symbol, and then input.txt. And in this particular case, for input redirection, 0 is optional. So 0 is optional. So we no need to specify the 0 also. Simply say cat less than input.txt. So when I execute this, which will get the data from input.txt. So this is input redirection. We are getting the input from the input.txt. Now I want to get the data from input.txt, but instead of displaying here, I want to redirect this output into some other file. Let's say output.txt. So now I'm going to use combination of input redirection and output redirection. So I want to take the input from input.txt and write the same data into output.txt. So let me just achieve this. So first I want to read the data from input.txt. For that, what I have to use? Input redirection. Input redirection is what? 0 less than. And file name is input.txt. So which will give you data from input.txt. And once get the data from this, I want to redirect the output into output.txt. What is the symbol we have to use for output redirection? 1 greater than and output.txt. I'm also using numbers, but in both the cases, numbers are optional. Only for error redirection, we must specify the number, that is 2. But in case of input and output redirections, numbers are optional. So 0 input.txt, which will take the data from input.txt and write the result into output.txt. Once executed this, now it is done. Execute cat. Let me just display the data from output.txt. I'll say output.txt. Now we got the same data. So what we have done, we have read the data from input.txt, input redirection, and by using output redirection, we have written the same data in output.txt. And same command we can also write like this. We can just remove the numbers, because for input redirection and output redirection, numbers are optional. So cat less than input.txt, which will read the data and display the data in output.txt. Redirection, execute. It will do the same thing. I'll say cat again output.txt. We got the same output. Okay, so this is how we can do input redirection, error redirection, and output redirection. So let me just summing up the points here. So the conclusion is, for standard input, we use 0 as a number. For standard output, we are using 1 as a number. Standard error, we use 2 as a number. And what is a standard input device is keyboard. Standard output device is terminal. Standard error device is also terminal. And what is the symbol we use for standard input? Less than, but 0 is an optional number. And standard output, we use either greater than and double greater than. And 1 is a number, but which is optional. In case of standard error, we use number 2 and symbols are greater than and double greater than. But here, the number is mandatorily required. When I use these two redirection symbols, error redirection symbols, we must use number along with the symbol. But in case of input redirection and output redirection, we no need to use 0 and 1 along with the symbols. Okay, so these are all about input, error, output, redirection. Now I'll show you one more last scenario. My requirement is, let us say, this is one more requirement I have. So redirecting the output of one terminal to another terminal. Suppose I'll get some output from the one terminal. Suppose I'll execute one command in one terminal, but I want to redirect the output into some other terminal. I want to redirect the output into some other terminal. So then how we can achieve this? So my requirement is, let us say this is my one terminal, guys. Okay, this is my one terminal. So let me open one more terminal. Okay, so let me open one more terminal. How to open another terminal? File, a new terminal. Okay, so I have opened one more terminal here. This is one terminal. I'll open one more terminal. Let me just see the requirement. So let me maximize this also. All right. So now I have two terminals are there. So first terminal and second terminal. So my requirement is I want to execute one command from first terminal. Then I want to redirect the output into second terminal. I want to see the output in the second terminal. So how it is possible? So I want to redirect the output of the one terminal to another terminal. So what is the redirection we have to use here? Output redirection we have to use. So let us see how we can achieve this. So in Linux or Unix, everything is a file. So even in the terminal is also considered as a file. Okay. So if you want to redirect the output to the particular terminal, we have to know exactly which file is representing this terminal. Okay. So if you know exactly which file is representing this terminal, we can easily redirect the output into that particular file. And that will be shown in the terminal. Let us say this is my first terminal. Let us say this is my first terminal and this is my second terminal. Okay. And when I execute the command from the first terminal, I want to redirect the output to the second terminal. Okay. For that, we have to know in which file the second terminal is stored, in which directory the second terminal file is stored, because in Linux or Unix, everything is a file. So to know that, we have one command called tty. So in the second terminal, I'm executing tty command. So when I execute this tty, which will give you the exact location in which file this terminal is located. So this particular location file is representing this terminal. Okay. Now I'll execute one command from the first terminal. Observe this carefully. So when I execute some ls command here, ls-l. Now what happens? The output is displayed on the same terminal, right? Same terminal. Now instead of printing the output in the same terminal, I want to redirect the output into second terminal. So how we can do that is, we can simply say like this, ls-l output redirection. What is the symbol for output redirection? Greater than. And where exactly I want to send this output? Which file? This particular file. So this particular file is representing the second terminal. So I'm just copying here. Then what happens? Whatever output we are getting from this command, we are redirecting the output into this particular file. So what is this file is representing? The second terminal is representing. So when I execute this, observe this carefully. Now I executed the command from the first terminal. I got the output in the second terminal. Now we can just look at this. Okay, because I've just done the output redirection to that particular file. So this particular file is representing the second terminal. Okay. Similarly, I can execute few more commands. Let me just clear and let me just say I have some file. Let's say cat input.txt. Okay, now I have a file called input.txt which contains some data. So instead of displaying the data in the same console, I want to display this data in the second terminal. Second terminal I want to display. So I want to redirect the output from this to second terminal. So for that, what I can do is I say cat input.txt. So whatever output you are getting from this particular file, I want to redirect, and which file? TTY. So this is a file which is representing the second terminal. So I'm just copying here. Okay, now I'm just copying here. Now observe this carefully. So when I execute this command, now you can see output, you can see in the second terminal. So you're redirecting the output from one terminal to another terminal. Simply I can execute one more command. Let's say I have one echo command. Echo means whatever we printed in the console, or whatever we put in the double quotations will be displayed. So let me say, I'll say welcome to Linux. When I execute enter, the output is displayed in the same terminal, but I want to redirect this output into some other terminal, second terminal. Then what I can do is I can execute the same command. What is the redirection symbol? I can execute like this, greater than, and then location of the file. So what is the location? This is the location. TTY gives the location of the second terminal. So that I'm going to execute, specify that. So whatever output we are getting from this command will be redirected that output into some other file. So output redirection. Now when I execute this command from the first terminal, now we can see the output is displayed on the second terminal. Okay, so this is how we can redirect the output of one terminal to another terminal. So here we use one command called TTY. So this command will give you the file name of the terminal, and by using this we can redirect the output into some other terminal. Okay, so this is all about input, output, and error redirections, and very important concept in Unix or Linux. Okay, so that's all for this video, guys. Thanks for watching.